My name is Dan Budak. I am the Director of Admissions here at Vermont Law and Graduate School. I am about 10, 11 years into graduate admissions and really excited to be jumping into the law admissions space. A lot of similarities, a lot of really great insights that I have from that space. And then I'm also joined by Dean Katie Merrill. Katie, want to give a little intro?
Hi, all. I'm Katie Merrill, and I've been at Vermont Law for 12 years. I feel very fortunate. I love this little law school. It's very special to me because it really is focused, mission-based, but it's also focused on your learning journey. So it's nice that over the years we've been able to meet students where they're at through our flexible JED programs, whether you're on campus for 3 years, whether you do an accelerated on campus 2-year program, or if you join us online. So it's really pretty unique community in a sense, and I just enjoy it quite a bit.
And Ellen Doobie will be joining us as well. Ellen, you want to give a quick little hello?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ellen Doobie. I am the Admissions Outreach and Events Coordinator here. I have lived in Vermont for 20 years, so definitely fell in love with the state after moving up here after undergrad in Boston. But I also handle the tours here on campus. So if you want to connect with me at any point to come visit our campus in South Royalton, Vermont, I'll be happy to help you. And I'll be putting things in the chat today to help give you additional information.
Awesome. Thanks, Ellen. And we'll be using the chat throughout, so feel free to throw in questions as they come up, and we will do our best to either answer them live in our discussion or in the chat itself. So the way we're going to approach today, Katie and I, as I mentioned, have several years of admissions experience, and I know that I've read over, at the last time I assessed it, it was over 8,000 applications in my career. So I know Katie has definitely read a good handful as well. So we're going to talk about the application and talk about how to put your best foot forward, how to put yourself out there. So Katie, I want to start off and ask you, what are your biggest pieces of advice for someone applying to law or graduate school?
So my biggest advice is one, preparation. It's really key. Do your research, understand like your audience of each law school, and then be authentic, be yourself, paint a full picture of yourself. This is like an opportunity for you to like speak to law schools, and in some cases you get to know us, in other cases this might be your only opportunity to connect with law schools. So I think it's really important, one, to be prepared, know the audience of the law school you're applying to, and then be authentic. Dan?
Yeah, I fully agree with those pieces. I think the biggest thing for me when I'm looking at an application is preparation. I can tell when somebody has put in the time and really invested in the process, and other times when things have just been thrown together. Knowing that someone is painting a full picture is really the biggest thing for me. And Katie and I always say, don't leave anything a mystery. Explain everything. Put all your information out there. We want to know what the bad grade on your college algebra test, where that came from, what happened there, or why you might not have, or why you might have canceled an LSAT score, something like that. So all of those pieces are really key. Katie, let's start from the beginning. Thinking about the overall application process, what are things students should know about the application process that might not be super obvious?
All right, so big thing that you should do is you're researching your schools. I'm a big fan of Excel sheets. And you're going to start like, okay, these are the schools I'm interested in. These are the programs I'm interested in. These are their medians, their LSAT GPA. This is my median LSAT GPA. And then what you want to do is, it's so important, know like each school's different instructions for applications. They vary. Some schools require one letter of recommendation, some require 4. So you really want to know what each school is looking for. And then you want to like know their deadlines and timelines so you can like work backwards. One thing that I always I am gonna work backwards. So I think the big thing and is LSAT and GRE prep. We take both. The majority of our students come in with an LSAT, just to be advised regarding that. But look at, maybe you all have already taken, I understand you're all in various phases of your application. But if you haven't taken the LSAT, that's your first important thing, is like, okay, when can I take the LSAT? Typically, I recommend, 3 to 4 months worth of prep. So keep that in mind. And that's a key part of your application. And then work backwards. What is their deadline? I know some students will get tied up in, early decision deadline is November 15th. And they'll rush something in. You don't need to do that. The majority of law schools across the country, the bulk of applications come in January, February, March, April. So you're not behind. You're gonna be okay. And your biggest thing is just creating this timeline and creating a well-prepared application. I don't know, Dan, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I think the biggest piece is preparation and rushing through something. In so many ways, the legal profession and doing graduate work is so critically part of the organizational piece, right? Being organized is such a huge component to the process. And if we see an application that reflects somebody not being fully organized, not having their stuff together, then it really shows. It shows in so many ways. And so working with either a partner, a family member, a pre-law advisor, a faculty member, maybe a supervising attorney that you've worked with in the past, to kind of organize your stuff and get your materials together, I think is really key. I I personally know that applying to an advanced degree should never be done as a solo project. Have people read your materials, have your support system there, and make sure they're in it with you. You can benefit greatly from collaborative work and getting feedback on your personal statement and where you're getting your letters of recommendation, all of that.
And also too, I want to add, I've seen at my institution and at other institutions, if you don't necessarily follow instructions, it could determine whether you're admitted or not, despite if you fall into their medians. So that's really a key point. Now, so the applications itself, I'm going to kind of go through some of the components. I'm going to start with the personal statement. I love a personal statement. It's typically what I go to first when I'm reading a file. I'm going to backtrack admissions committees. Each school sets them up differently. So at Vermont Law, it's admissions professionals that read your application, but we also have faculty review. Some institutions also incorporate students. So like, be mindful that a faculty person might be reading your essay, a admissions professional, and they're each going to approach it a little bit differently. That's why it's so important to make sure each component you've given your best effort. So I'm if you can't tell, I'm like the want to get to know you, very interested in who you are as a person, person. So I go right to the personal statement. And again, I'm going to go back to know your audience, research your schools. As you know, Vermont law, we're heavily steeped in public interest. So I am always looking for that little kind of heart aspect of a personal statement. And understanding our mission will help kind of like guide your mission. I think Ellen was reminding me that I always say a personal statement is like a mission statement. You know, why do you want to go to law school? What are your goals? What are your career goals? Like what attracted you to the law? What are some key things that you see in yourself that will make you a good attorney? So, you know, it's really hard to find yourself in a personal statement. So I'm always like, find your authentic voice. You know, what's unique, distinctive, impressive about your story? What are some details about your life that have shaped or influenced your goals? How did you become interested in this field? What are compelling reasons why the admissions committee would consider you? What personal characteristics do you have that will make you a good attorney, policymaker, and ways to demonstrate that in your essay, you want to tell a story. So it goes beyond just I was a paralegal, I'm detailed oriented, I've been at my job 20 years. Okay, you're telling me that, but you could go so much deeper. Maybe it's something like our firm was working on a critical case. We, stayed the night fact checking, which at the end of the evening, we wrote a document that was critical to the case. So you see, like I'm getting a bigger, better story told picture of you. So like, for example, I grew up in a two household. So, my mom and my dad. And one, like a personal kind of thing about me is I had a very conservative side and a very liberal. It's almost kind of like how the country is today. And it shaped who I am and how I look at life and why I pursued the career I pursued. And so that's really how I would start my story and build on that. And a lot of work that I did through this journey, like I had an internship and it fed the reason why I wanted to do what I want to do. And I would incorporate that internship into my personal statement. And so you could see this like rich life, a little bit about Katie and not a lot. You don't want to go too personal in a personal statement, but enough. You're like, oh, she has these two different lives. And oh, wow, this really cool internship, which sparked an interest in her. And then, and what I can bring from those experiences. And then like I would loop it in together with like letters of recommendation to support like my journey, my academic journey, my experiential journey. And that's how you build this wonderful piece that is you. That is all like the best parts of you. That's the big thing. Personal statement, best parts of you. Funny thing, my big things I always love to say, don't be too creative. I was like laughing. I was playing around, and you can play around. Like you guys enjoy this process. It's about self-discovery. It's about, do you really want to be a lawyer? I mean, if you're studying for the LSAT and let's say you love con law, you could write a personal statement like I took con law and I love it. I mean, I can't wait to hear what's happening, what decisions coming out. I'm reading those. Like, to me, that's a great personal statement. But I was laughing like, don't be cliche. Like, make sure your grammar, everything is perfect. Don't be over creative. And this is what I wanted to get to. So I love personal statements, but I also don't like when people are too creative. Like sometimes I had a letter, dear 13-year-old self, you're getting ready for volleyball tryouts. And it was this whole weird letter. Don't do that. And then I had a slam poetry personal statement. And I was thinking about that today because don't do that either. But I created one. Like I was like this. I was like this morning, I was like, huh. And I was like, grew up with two voices, one wrapped in red, the other blue. Debates at dinner tables, torn between the two. Literally had a statement like that. But you know, it kind of was fun. And I did one based on immigration law and just like, and it helped me. I know this sounds weird, but it kind of did help me find like this voice. Now I wouldn't turn it into a law school, but it was a fun exercise. I don't know, Dan, do you want to kind of go a little bit deeper?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've got some good ones that I haven't yet hit a artistic or creative one quite that exciting. I think for me, going into detail is a choice, and where you draw the line is I think important. What we're looking for, or what I'm looking for in a personal statement, is an explanation for why you're prepared, why you're ready for law school. For me, it is something adversity that you faced, and ways that you've developed grit and perseverance, and all of those components. I'm going to look for you to kind of be self-reflective and understand where you're coming from and what you're bringing to the table, and how that prepared you for this journey. And we know that the biggest piece of law school is the endurance part of it. It is a at least 2 years, if not 3.5 years, if not 5 years, slog, and knowing that you're prepared for it is really important. How you frame that and how you paint that picture is in your hands. And I found some really compelling stories that just give an idea about somebody's background, somebody's history. Like Katie said, where they're coming from, whether it be recent history or their upbringing, and then framing that as a piece that built your strength, and what has built your strength in your preparation for law school. I'm always looking for somebody to be self-referential and understand where they're coming from, rather than try and completely escape and be uh, outside of the personal. It is called a personal statement in a lot of ways for that reason. I want to be able to get to know you and who you are as a person. If it's really just standard generic, what you think we want to hear, it's not going to really stand out.
So true. Because we do really, we want to get to know you because law schools are building communities and
Mm.
it's so, and honestly, I feel like it's such a privilege to be able to read personal statements and understand someone because when our admitted students and matriculated students are here on campus, I see them. Like I know them. I know sometimes their hopes. I know their hopes, and I hold that as such an honor. Um, and it's such a privilege to see that. Uh, Now, I will say this: nobody's perfect. It's okay. So let's say you need to tell us something that maybe, like Dan, you mentioned at the beginning, don't let us fill in the blanks. So like, you have that bad grade, you might want to address it in an addendum. Like anything that's not glowing, utilize addendum. Maybe you had a lower, oops, sorry, the phone's ringing, a lower LSAT score, then you want to address that. It's not the end all be all, but it's worth noting. Maybe you had a bad semester of grades. Again, it's just owning it. And I would be in these like addressing something that's like not so good about yourself, just be clear, concise. It doesn't have to be a 2-page explanation of what happened. It's just enough where we're not going, so like canceling scores. Guys, I think ask your law schools that you're applying to. I always fill in a blank why someone's canceled a lot like a score. So I'm always thinking it's low. But so it might be something that, Dan, you were talking like a student the other day, like really addressed like, my score was lower the third time. I was in the middle of the exams and I probably didn't spend enough time. And then I had someone who canceled one and I assumed it was low, but it was actually the same, but they thought they should cancel, which if you get the same score as your prior one, I'd keep it. I don't know. I'm sorry. I always feel like it's lower. Dan, I don't know if you want to comment on.
No, I
such.
think it's really important and maybe clarifying our distinction between what goes into a personal statement and what goes into an addendum is a good idea. I think personal statements, as Katie mentioned, should be mostly positive, mostly about your growth and mostly about your strength and your preparation. And then when it comes to an addendum, save maybe the blemishes that aren't really life-changing blemishes, but there might be something on your application that we're going to see and have questions about. Answer those questions, preempt us asking those questions. In the case that we don't necessarily follow up and say, hey, we read your application and we noticed that your scores look a little, we're not going to follow up oftentimes. So preempt those explanations in addenda so you can build that expectation.
One thing I want to add is character and fitness. So character and fitness, don't be afraid of character and fitness. I am not a judge. By ABA requires us to let you know that character and fitness is part of your bar applications. Each law school will approach character and fitness very differently. I ask questions. Please be concise. This is where you're going to want to follow those instructions. Be concise, like December 2020 academic probation, was taken off academic probation, and maybe reflect a little bit, but just very basic. Underage drinking this day, this was the result, and this is like my actions afterwards. So please don't be nervous about character and fitness, and read the questions carefully. And you only need to like answer what we ask. Like I don't ask about finances. So you don't have to tell me like if you were late on credit cards. I don't care. I didn't ask it. Do they ask that on the bar application? Yes, but I didn't ask that. So like really don't over disclose, don't over explain, just be honest, concise, and own up to anything. Just be respectful. Like I had an error, and just really look at that. Okay, yes, diversity statements. Yes, submit a diversity statement. You can tell us. So I can't ask, but you can tell me. I want to know. And so sometimes a diversity statement can, be, religious, political, it can be based on ethnicity, and if it adds to your story, I would recommend it. It could be a time that you overcome adversity, but please, please, please let us know. I will tell you, law schools ask for it in very different ways now since the SCOTUS decision. Ours is like wrapped into how can you contribute to our mission in DEI, and that is our way of asking us, hey, tell us your story, and it's separate of your personal statement. Sometimes you just don't want to repeat. Sometimes people repeat things. It's like you want to enhance. So maybe a big thing about is, concise themes. So you want to have most personal statements are 2 pages double space. So don't have a lot of themes running through there. You have, the main thing is why you want to go to law school and the characteristics that are going to make you successful in law school. And maybe that's not the place to talk about the role that your grandfather played in your life. Maybe that's where you want to add your diversity statement, or an overcoming an experience, or coming out, or religious persecution, whatever that, please, that's so helpful to us. And I encourage you, because law schools miss knowing that, and you can tell us anything about you, and we like it. I don't know if you want to add anything, Dan.
Yeah, I think for me, being able to read a diversity statement in with that thought of building community, we're looking to build a really strong cohort of students, and the diversity of our cohort is really, really, really critical. You imagine you get into a classroom and everybody's got the same background and got the same perspective. We've got students from 37 different states in our 1L class this year. And I think that is, without talking about race, age, ethnicity, religious background, anything like that, we've got folks coming from all around the country. And that, to me, it represents a really cool environment that we create here. And we're thinking about the community that we're working in. When you come visit, when you reach out to Ellen and set up a visit, you'll come to see just the community that we exist within. We're a small rural community in the state of Vermont. The state of Vermont is a really wonderful, progressive, liberal state, but also we have a ton of farms, and we have a ton of hunting culture, and it's a really cool environment to interact with. And getting those diversity statements is a really good way to start the conversation and start seeing where students fit.
I am going to do a shameless plug for Vermont and Vermont culture. Very unique, very, very unique. And one of my favorite alumni now from Texas, her whole goal was to come to Vermont Law and then go back to Texas to work. But you have a big voice in Vermont, and Vermont nationally has a big voice. And whatever voice you bring, I mean, I have had ideas in our town hall that all that nobody wants to do it, but my voice is heard. And then as a law student here, your voice is going to be heard. And it's such a great practice ground, because if you have a good idea, it's like this. I have this idea. You go to a professor, and the professor's like, oh, that's a really good idea. So what does he do? He calls the governor, because you can hear. It's the weirdest thing. So I'll go and say, hey, I got this great idea. And it's why we have an expungement law. It was 2 students, one from Tennessee, who's in Tennessee, back in Tennessee, and one from Massachusetts. And so these students created this, and it, what an experience that you can have here. So, shameless plug about Vermont. And it's true with our online community. I will say this. We were nervous with our online, for those interested in online hybrid, we were nervous, like, oh my gosh, are we going to have the same type of community? A little bit different age demographic, working professionals, age 35, on campus it's 26. Guess what? You all want to make the world better too. And it's the same kind of, everyone's from everywhere, everyone has different views, but you all have a common goal to make a difference. So it's a nice feel. All right, so we talked about personal statement. I'm gonna, what pieces enhance your personal statement? One, your resume. Clear thing, do not repeat your resume in your personal statement. I look at your resume. What I love is maybe there's an experience, like, for example, an internship or a job experience where you interacted with the law, and it's just listed on your resume, like a internship here, and you pull out that experience in your personal statement. So that's how I would use resumes. And guys, if you're recently out of college, it's a smaller resume. If you have a lot of work experience, it's a little bit larger. It's a professional resume, so you want to kind of be key on what you want to include. Internships, volunteer, leadership experience. As you or if you're farther along in your career, it's going to be more of a typical resume. Don't worry if you don't have legal experience. A lot of times you may work at a nonprofit and it's not a law firm. You didn't do an internship at a law firm, but you interacted with the law. Every law school is different on this. Okay, it's Vermont. Let's be real, it's Vermont law. I love the hobbies. I love looking at that. I have a friend at a corporate law school who's just one of my best buddies. For law school, I don't know if I put hobbies on there. They kick out like just professional corporate lawyers. But I love it because I love to know if you sing, play an instrument, your language, if you read, if you ski, that kind of helps me understand who you are as a person. Because I also think I want you to be happy here. That's the thing. It's like, oh yeah, that sounds like they would love being in Vermont. So that's how I relate the resume. And then so let's say that internship or that job experience, and I love academic. Let's be clear. I love academic faculty letters of recommendation. We take up to 4. I would love 2 and maybe work experience or mentor coach kind of thing. So you have to be really strategic on how these letters of recommendation are going to enhance your application. But maybe the reason why you want to go to law school and one of the recommenders wrote your letter, and then everything, see how it's tying together. I see your journey, your work experience. Ooh, there's where they came into contact with the law. Here it comes out in the personal statement. Oh my gosh, here's a person that's outside of just you and me who's telling me about your experience. And I love that. And they always, I got to tell you, a good letter of recommendation, sometimes give them your personal statements, kind of helpful. But a good letter of a recommender tells me something that I don't know about you, but maybe you won't say. Sometimes they might say, hey, I have so much respect for this student. Originally, they started with a B and they brought it to a B plus. Ooh, I love that. That means you're a hard worker. I know, Dan, do you want to comment on letters of recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's a matter of who is in your circle and who is in your bubble. Professionally, there are going to be folks who are watching you and seeing you work really hard or accomplish things that you might not have anticipated. But then Katie mentioned giving them a personal statement. I actually I've written enough letters of recommendation in past lives where I've asked for, I need something, I need a little bit more to grab onto so I can speak to why you want to do this. Because I knew you in a psychology class that I taught, or I knew you in a professional relationship that didn't necessarily say, PhD or law school or anything like that. So always getting the most material is welcome for the letters of recommendation. And then, as Katie mentioned, if you've got folks that you have worked with academically in a recent environment, yes, 100%. Those letters of recommendation are incredibly strong. When we look at an application, though, we're gonna say, okay, we've got these people who just graduated from undergrad, but they don't have any letters of recommendation from the academic side of things. Did they not connect with faculty? Did they, work independently and not really engage with the faculty? That could be a challenge, right? That could be a challenge because law school is all about close collaboration with faculty and your fellow students. And so we're always going to be looking for those strong academic pieces. And then the folks who know you professionally, they're the ones who can speak to how hard you're going to work. And we know that law school is hard, and they hopefully can say just how hard you're gonna work for that JD degree.
Yeah, so I know, and on here, no, if you haven't been in school, you're 35, it's been a long time. You don't have to dig up old professors. I would just pick people in your career field, not colleagues, but I think someone that can really speak to your work ethic, project management, anything that kind of gives us an idea of how you would succeed in law school. I will say this, like, you know, very different when I'm looking at someone who might be in their 40s, considering the online hybrid versus someone right out of college. So your work experience here weighs heavily. So then I really do look at that resume. It's very, very important to me. Whereas like someone out of college or 2 years out, I'm looking more at your academics, volunteer work, internships, your first jobs, because you know your career path is just starting, and so I look at those very, very differently. I probably for non-traditional students, I would weigh higher on their work experience, and for traditional JD students, I'm gonna weigh more on your academic experience and kind of your co-curriculars. Because I can, you know, it's funny, I can kind of see you, like, I love this. Like, if you're just starting your journey, I can kind of see where you're going. And then if you're in your journey, I can see like, oh yeah, they're ready. And what I love about the online hybrid, someone asked this earlier, it's 3.5 years, it's part-time, straight through 10 semesters, brutal, rigorous. But it's giving opportunities to students who haven't had an opportunity to go to law school. They may have had circumstances that they needed to work right out of college. So that's what I like about the online hybrid. I love our residential program because it's different and it's you know, more experiential based. So it's good for students who you know, might be their first exposure to law. So
Katie, letters of recommendation from uh, practicing attorneys, state government, judges, all of those people. What are your thoughts?
worked for them. Okay. So I love like some, you know, my favorite is someone's like it happened in their personal statement to write, oh, my dad's a lawyer and I've always wanted to be a lawyer. And you're like, okay. And then you notice their last name, and then you get a letter of recommendation, and you notice that the law firm has the partner, like one of the partners' name is like the dad, and then but it's a partner from that law firm. Nope. You really it like I'd rather have uh like who you've been in contact with, who you've really worked for. And everyone thinks sometimes it's better to have like a superstar write your letter of recommendation or this awesome professor. It can be a TA that really knows your work ethic. It can be let's say you did an internship and like you're like Bernie Sanders. Okay, he's not going to write you a letter of recommendation, but whoever supervised you will. So it's really someone that can speak to knowing you, because they do help us develop a picture of you. I will say this, did have someone who had like a really famous letter of recommendation. I was like, ha ha ha, they actually worked for them. So then I was like, oh, okay. So in those cases, yeah, you can pull out those guys, but if you're working at your dad's law firm, I'd be careful. Maybe that could be your extra letter.
Mhm. Definitely have more than two if you're going to use one of those, right? And then I've always, if I read a letter of recommendation that's from a judge and it's just very standard and very rote and template heavy, it's not going to count against you. It's not going to disqualify you from being admitted. It's not going to have the impact that you might think,
Yeah.
right? It might not be the big home run hit that you are anticipating.
I don't know. I feel, and I've have a lot of friends across the country that do my job, and I rely on them a lot. We're all friendly, just so you know. Law schools are friendly. We all work together. But our biggest thing is we just want to know who you are. Like and it doesn't really truly matter who tells us like their level, as long as they can speak to who you are as a person, as an academic, as a colleague, as yeah, and don't be afraid to contact us in admissions. Any school, and really go through the application process. If you have a question about an essay, like, oh, should I do that optional essay? It's optional. Sometimes I love it, you know, if it adds. I only love it if it adds to your picture. Really. Trying to think what else. Oh,
Have we
I love looking at.
transcripts?
My God, guys, love it. I love seeing your academic journey. Even, oh, I was telling Dan this today. I don't know why. Like, I sit down, I'm like, ooh, what classes do they take? I like to see your program. I like to see the classes you take. I do like look at your journey. Don't feel bad for anyone out there that had a rough start. My new fun tidbit that I picked up on the road. Statistically, let's say you were in the wrong major and your like grades are like, and then you have that growth, because that's what we're really looking for, is your growth. So you have that growth. Statistically, that means you have a better chance of passing the bar. Isn't that a cool tip? So like own it. Like own, like, oh wow, I was a biology major and my grades weren't that great, but you know, I switched over to political science or environmental studies, and I found my place, and that's a great place to be.
And you can, if your transcript does wobble at one point, or your transcript starts out low and climbs to the highest peaks, put that in an addendum. Put that in so that you can tell that story and explain that. It could be 2020 happened, and the spring of 2020 really just threw off, my entire academic experience. And so, yeah, you're going to see a blip here or a blip there. The other piece for me is the folks who have a 4.0 GPA throughout their undergrad experience. It doesn't mean that you're not necessarily going to be good for passing the bar. It just means you need to take a minute when you start your legal academic journey and figure out exactly how to do it, right? Figure out how to study, figure out how to translate that information into really effective learning and understanding. A lot of folks who have had academic struggles in the past have gone through that journey already. For folks who have had that 4.0, sky high GPA the whole time, they probably haven't had to be referential to their learning habits and their learning styles. We have a really fantastic academic support program here at Vermont Law and Graduate School, and they have said to us frequently, the people who come to us are not necessarily the folks whose GPAs are coming in low. It's the folks who have never really had to think about the way that you study and the way that you take these legal concepts and translate them into actual practice, right? So it's always important to know that law and legal education is going to be a lot different from most any other academic environment you've been in. And so you're gonna be prepared for that one way or another.
Lauren, I love your question. If your transcript is solid, yeah, if it's solid, and I'm not like, ooh, what happened? It will speak for itself, and I can see your journey. Sometimes I do chuckle because like Well, Dan, you're talking about 4.0s and students come to the law school, and typically you guys are, you're bright. All right. I'm saying when you get to law school, wherever you go to law school, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I found my people, because you're very similar. And you do have that moment. Law school's mostly grade on a 3.0 curve. So you might be used to getting these huge grades. And then next thing you know, you're like squeaking out a 3.2, which is hard to do in law school. So it is a transition. But sometimes, Lauren, I'll have someone who has like a 3.9 and they'll do an addendum. And I always laugh because 3.9 is pretty good. Like, hey, you did well. And they'll be like, I'm so sorry. I got this A minus and it, you know, it was devastating. But, you know, it's just kind of like, it's up to you on how you want to say it. Oh, change of majors. Address that, to be honest, because I might be just curious. It might be like you took, you know, that's interesting. That might be a unique addendum because it might be I took this course and it shifted my focus. Yeah, that happens in law school. People come in, you know, we're nationally known for our environmental law program. We're one of the best. And our deep, dark secret is we are a law school. So you might fall in love with estates, tax law. There's so many different avenues, and we are a law school. So people change gears here. Yeah, they'll come in and then be like, I want to do business law. And it's interesting, like you'll see our specializations. It's like all the environmental and then like public interest, all of that, and then business law. And I find that so funny because business is so connected to so many things. And so people come here and then they end up in business law. Yeah.
Same thing
Gosh.
for IP and trademarks, right? We see a lot of folks come in saying, "Oh, I'm going to do environmental," and then they're doing some type of IP or trademark law around maybe environmental pieces, right? The new technology within solar arrays or doing an energy clinic where you work on a new product and stuff like that. So it is diverse in how folks kind of go through their journey.
Um, Angelica, thank you so much. Yeah, we're so dedicated to criminal justice reform. Super dedicated. I, I, you know, one thing I do want to say, I think that is even going to go deeper over the next couple of years and how we approach things. And our work, and hopefully being able to bring our online hybrid JD into prison so people have access to a law degree while they're in prison. Yeah, I will say this, character and fitness. I still ask a question about character and fitness, but we're a restorative justice law school. So for me, I just like to see the restorative aspect of if there's a character and fitness issue. But I tell you, hurdle after hurdle, that one thing I see is students, you overcome a hurdle and then there's another hurdle and then there's another hurdle and then there's another hurdle. And had a student a couple of years ago with some character and fitness issues. Amazing, barred, practicing. But I got a call, and thank goodness, I'm like, no questions. It was easy answer for me with this student. But I got a call from a landlord. They did a background check. And thank goodness this is a small area. And I got the phone call. But if you think about it, you have reached, you know, you've served your time, you're out, you've been able to get a job, you've finished your undergrad, you took the LSAT, now you're going to law school, you still have to deal with character and fitness. And then maybe at the time, we were the only law school to give the opportunity. But then a landlord you can't find housing. So it's something that, as you can tell, like I should do a slam poetry about it, man. It's just, so important to be, it's like who you are today and who, like, this is like, when we're talking about if you're 35 writing your personal statement, it's who you are today. If you're 22 writing your personal statement, it's who you are today too. And I love both students. It's funny, because I'm older now, I kind of tend to like mother the younger students, versus where I used to be. And now I really like, oh, like my online hybrid are kind of more of my colleagues in a sense. Oh, okay. So, Elizabeth, oh, applying, when to apply. I get this question a lot, when to apply with regard to LSATs. All right. Um, yes. So you can apply with your February LSAT. And if you're retaking LSATs, please allow yourself time to self-correct. Like I know, uh, Elizabeth, you're looking at retaking it in June. You can apply with February. If the LSAT is below our median, then that's like, reach out to us. We'll definitely have a conversation about how to approach it. If you retake it in June, that, like, just so you all know, LSATs are tied with like your, like being admitted, but it's also tied with scholarship. So typically, if I can, I'll increase your scholarship based on your new LSAT. June's a little late for that. It would help with admittance, but it might be a little late because sometimes depending on like June, like I'm not talking April, like my scholarships are still fine, but June, I might have like issued all my scholarship funds out. So that's when you want to be strategic on how you retake it. And but that's worth scheduling an appointment once you get your February score and really looking, how did you study? How long did you study? Could you possibly take the April LSAT? Things along those lines. Oh my goodness, Ellen's putting in application fee waivers.
We must be getting close to the end of the hour.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, like, and please feel free to ask questions. The argumentative writing component, super important to faculty. All right. It's not something like, I read it. I like go, okay, can formulate an argument. I like, I have other components that I really rely on because I realize it's timed. I realize that, it also gives me an idea of where you're kind of at on a timed level. But I know faculty, they dig it. Every time I'm in a faculty admissions committee, they'll be like, oh, I looked at their writing sample from the LSAT and they're forgiving on certain things. They just want to see that you can build an argument. And they're forgiving in their exams too, like to a certain extent, because they know that you're under pressure.
Absolutely.
Oh, new messages.
Okay.
Any more questions, Dan?
Yeah, so a couple of questions. One question was about our availability over the break. Just a heads up, we wrap up on December 20th, around noontime. I would say that's when we're logging off, and then what will happen over the 2 week break. We'll have some folks checking email, but don't rely on that as a component. We do have our December 30th event, and that is a really great time to connect with us. That will be on December 30th. The event is info session / Q&A with we'll have breakout rooms where you'll be able to be connecting with us about residential programs and the OHJD separately. So we'll be able to answer specific questions there. And then we'll have admission staff there as well to talk about any quirky application issues that you might be having. What I will say is if you're working on your application over the break and you have this kind of overwhelming feeling of I must submit it by January 1st. Don't worry. Just wait until we're back. If you have something quirky or an issue that's happening, we're happy to answer those questions. We're going to have a backlog of information the first day, the first couple of days after we come back from the January break, but we're going to be available in January. All of us are ready to answer questions. We're happy to help you navigate. So don't feel this kind of false sense of priority of getting things in by January 1st.
Yeah, right. And Jordan asked about like with the documents. I love LSAC. If Jordan, I don't know if you're applying through LSAC, if you're a JD or a master's, but if you're JD students, they send it in this cool little file for us. So it's all, they package it up. Just be mindful, that you've submitted the right documents, because sometimes you submit the wrong personal statement for the wrong, not, it's unintentional, but you gotta like make sure like, okay, this one is Vermont law. Maybe this is that organization, keep separate, files for all your law schools, and all the documents that you want to submit for Vermont law are there. Sometimes people submit like 2 resumes or 2 personal statements, and then I get a little confused. So just kind of look at what you're submitting. And then LSAC packages it up for us. It's really nice. And it's kind of cool. They'll do your personal statement and then any optional essays and resume, and then any like addendum is how they usually do that. Oh yeah. Dan answered Libby's about working on application. Okay, I'm going to be one of those things. Studying for the LSAT is paying yourself, because LSAT is so tied to scholarships with most law schools. So like pretend it's a part-time job. And when you need a break, go and do your like authentic voice, like write a story about yourself. See how the snow is falling. I had this really cool essay, and she talked about how her dad was from Jamaica and they had moved to Boston. And so she told a little story about her dad, and he's just always talking about snow, when it's coming, the snow plow, and the snow falling and all of this. And then he would tell stories about his childhood in Jamaica. But like, so maybe take a 30-minute break and write like maybe something that might become part of your personal statement. I love that, because see how that gave me an insight to who she was. And the best part is she writes in why she wants to go to law school. And then she ended her essay with, my dad, this is about her journey to undergrad, and then, her experience in undergrad and why she wanted to go to law school. And she goes, and then when my dad dropped me off at the airport at Boston, we were talking about the snow plows. And then I was waiting when he dropped me off for this advice like he gave as a child, or like, anything from him that was related to our Jamaican culture. And he like literally pulled up and was like, I gotta go home and snowplow the driveway or shovel the driveway. And he's like, bye. And then she gets out of the car and goes, okay. But I just thought that was a way to it was a really great story, a little bit about her and a lot about why she wanted to go to law school. Yes, the application can be submitted prior to LSAT scores. So it'll be incomplete. And then once your score feeds in, it takes a little couple days. You'll get it, and then we get it. It's the funniest thing. Same with your letters of recommendation. They'll be like, your letter of recommendations are in, but I get it 2 days later. And then it will feed automatically. So, yeah, a lot of times what students do is they take the LSAT, and then they take those next couple of weeks while they're waiting for their score to finalize their application submitted. Yeah.
Katie, I think we have a popular question about how many students are typically accepted into the hybrid online JD program.
But it's pretty competitive. I'm just gonna say, so really, I'm taking my time on admitting students into the online hybrid. And there's, I think maybe 19 schools now, that maybe 20 that accept, that have an online hybrid JD program. So this is where, again, you really want to focus on having a prepared application. I have more seats available residentially than I do online hybrid. So applications nationally are up significantly. I don't want you to worry about that. Still put your best foot forward. I'm really going to look at you as a person and your work experience and your essays. We aren't a school that's heavily driven by LSAT. Yes, it's important. I want you to pass the bar. But I'm also looking for more than that. I'm really looking for, I want to look for people who are going to go out and make a difference in the world and are hard workers. So that's what I'm looking for. But don't panic. Sometimes we have big years, and then maybe it's the next year that you look for a seat. Again, that's where, if it's a highly competitive program, double check everything. Is my advice, because like if I see one error and I have one seat, I'm going to give it to the person who has a better application. Harsh reality. So important. Yep. But it doesn't matter, like, don't rush. I'm going to take time to build this class this year. So don't feel like you need to rush, because I'm really looking for a balanced class. Same with residential. Yeah, like I was telling Dan, had a student, huge LSAT, huge undergrad GPA, one paragraph for their personal statement. That's it. No way. That to me shows that they won't actively work hard in law school. So like, that's the importance of building a really strong application. Sorry to be down, but don't worry.
We could provide.
Be coming to these things. I know that you came to these things, and it doesn't hurt. Like in our, I know you guys, it doesn't hurt to do this with your law school's visit. And I don't know what other law schools ask, but I do ask a question like, how have you heard? Like, Dan, what's the question? It's usually like, have we met you? How did you hear about us? And you can write, oh, I was at the personal statement workshop. Oh my gosh. So that goes a long way with us, because then here's the thing. Don't be afraid to let schools know that you're interested in their school, like by attending events and things like that. Yeah, like I love that. I do make note of that. If like I know, like is it Jeffrey from Denver? Like you made a note like, hey, I met you in Denver. It just makes me feel like we know each other and that we already have type of relationship, and we can build that online.
And I mean, Katie, what a great way to kind of capture the community that we build and the community that we have, both in person and in our online hybrid space, right? I'm delighted when we have our online hybrid residencies and the students are already friends and they've made connections and their study groups are already in place, or they just want to see each other and they just want to hang out. And whether I'm there or not, it really didn't make a difference. They just wanted to be in their community and in their space. So that's the really important piece for us. You're going to go out into the world, and so many of our alumni hire alumni. And so we build that. Building an admissions class, building a cohort is such an important part of our work. So all of that being said, I know we are already 10 minutes over. And Ellen, I know you plopped a couple of links and information, but do you want to give a quick verbal plug?
Sure. So I did put in the chat links to our next 4 webinars. So as Dan and Katie both mentioned, on December 30th, that is the next webinar, and that's a great way to get into those breakout rooms and really specifically ask your questions in a smaller environment of both traditional JD, residential, and the online hybrid program. And then there are 3 additional webinars in January and in February also. So kind of pinpointing different things like financial aid and also more of our environmental JD programs. So definitely look back through the chat to see those links to those webinars. I also put a link into the application fee waiver form. And I put our contact information in as well. You can feel free to reach out to me at any point if you've lost the link to any of these webinars or the application fee waiver, and I'm happy to help get you what you need. And we really appreciate you being online today.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I had so much fun. We wanted to do this before the break, and so that's why we are having hot chocolate in our fun background. And a lot of students work on their applications during the break, so we wanted to kind of just give you some tidbits about fun things to do. Yeah, yeah.
And hopefully this helps. If you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to us. We are happy to pick up the phone. We're happy to hop on a Teams call or a Zoom call and chat. So we're an open door when it comes to your application and getting everything sorted out.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, you guys enjoy. Have fun with this process. I know.
Awesome.
You guys are like, yeah, okay, thanks. Dude. Really do enjoy it and take time for guys, take time for yourself. Managing your health and managing stress is so important starting now because this is stressful. So like as you're going through this, really start working in those stress relief techniques because it'll help you perform better on the LSAT. It's going to help you produce a better application, and then you can carry those through to law school. Yeah. Right. Take time for yourself. Enjoy.
Wonderful. Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you.